Hello and welcome back to our Vectorworks 2026 drafting tutorials. Today we're going to be working on drafting a 2D version of Studio A. This will later serve as the basis of a 3D drawing of the space, but for today it'll just be 2D. So I'm going to just come up and start a new Vectorworks file, and this time I want to use a document template. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to click on my drop-down menu, and here are all the various templates that it will give me. I want Spotlight Imperial, so I'll click on that and say OK. And you'll notice that it automatically puts you on a predefined sheet layer called README, and it gives you some basic information about the drawing since it was created from a template. We don't really need this information. I'm just going to select this viewport and delete it. We'll come back to this sheet layer later on. But for now, I'm going to click on my active layer drop-down menu, and I'm going to see that it has already created 5 different layers for me to work in because it's working off of a template. I want to work in the theater floor plan for starters, so I'm going to click on that, so it puts me on that layer. Next, I'm just going to do my basic housekeeping things at the beginning of my drawing, so I'll come up to File, and Document Settings, and Units. And I want my units to be feet and inches. I want my rounding style to be fractional, and I want the precision to be 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to come down to my Attributes palette, and I'm going to make my default line thickness 7. And from there, I'm ready to start. So I'm going to start by just drawing a interior footprint of Studio A with a rectangle. So I'm going to activate my rectangle tool and just click in space to start it. And the interior dimensions of Studio A are 39 feet 9 inches on the X and 28 feet 3 inches on the Y. And I'll click to complete that rectangle. And there's my interior footprint of Studio A. From there, I need to draw the outside walls of Studio A, and I'm going to do that using my double line tool. So I'll activate that tool. I'm going to want it to be in right control line mode for starters, and then I'm going to go to my preferences, and I want my separation to be 6 inches, and I want to create polygons. I want to make sure that this is selected. Once I have both of those things set, I'll click OK. And now I'm just going to draw along the outer perimeter of the rectangle I just did. So I'm going to start in my top left-hand corner and just create a series of rectangles that cover each other and intersect each other like so. Once I've got those perimeter walls drawn, I want to make that one individual polygon. So I'm going to hold Shift and click each one of those individual rectangles and then come up to Modify because I'm working with a 2-dimensional object and just say Add Surface. That'll add that surface. And now that polygon is entirely one object. Next, there are 2 little bump outs on the left side of Studio A, so I need to draft those. So I'm going to activate my double line tool again just to create a spacer for myself so to know that I'm going the correct distance. So I'm going to say double line tool, and I'm going to switch it to left control line mode. From here, I'm going to grab the inside upper left-hand corner of my wall, which is also the endpoint of that initial rectangle that I drew, and I'll click to start that line. And my first little bump out section is 9 feet down from this corner, so I'll just tab in and say 9 feet, and click to complete that line. There's my little spacer, so I know that I'm have got something at the correct distance. And then from here, I'm going to activate my rectangle tool. I'm going to go from the bottom right-hand corner of the rectangle I just drew, and this little bump out is 8 inches wide, and it's going to come down 1 foot 11.5 inches. So on the Y, it's minus 1 foot 11.5. And I'll click to complete. So there's my little bump out section. From there, I'm going to select that spacer that I drew in and just delete it. I don't need it anymore. And like I mentioned, there is a second little bump out section. So I'm just going to select this and duplicate it, Command D, and move it, Command M. And I'm going to move it down minus 8 feet, 9.5 inches. And there's my second one. From here, I want all of that to be one individual polygon, so I'm going to hold Shift and select both of these new rectangles and the outer perimeter walls I drew earlier. Once I've got all of those selected, again, I'll come up to Modify and Add Surface. And now that's all one object. Next thing I need to do on this is actually change its appearance. Because it is an outer wall of a space, we want it to be hatched to visually indicate that. So I'm going to come down to my Attributes palette to Fill and click on the drop-down menu and select Hatch. It's going to give me this one as a default, which I don't really like, so I'm going to click on that to access my Resource Manager, and I want Cast Iron HF. So I'm just going to double-click on it, and we can see that my polygon has now been filled with that basic hatch. Next, I need to draw in the doors of Studio A, and I'm going to do that much the same way. So I am going to select my double line tool, and this time I want to make sure that I'm in right control line mode, still with a 6-inch separation, and I'm going to come to this upper right hand corner here and click to start my double line, and the first door is 12 feet 6 inches down from that corner. So I'll enter that in and click to complete, and there's the rectangle that's going to be my spacer. This section is actually a set of double doors that are 5 feet 10 inches wide. So I'm going to go from the bottom right hand corner of the rectangle I just drew and make that 5 feet 10 inches. I'll click to complete that, and there's the opening for my double doors. From here, I can select that spacer that I drew in and just delete it. I don't need it anymore. And next, I need to draw in the door and the swing, the arc for the swing of the doors for this set of double doors. So I'm going to activate my line tool, and I'm going to click on the top right-hand corner of my door opening. To start that line, I'm going to come horizontally out to the right, and I'm going to make it 2 feet 11 inches. I'll click to complete that. Then I'm going to switch to my arc tool and make sure that I'm in radius mode. And from here, I'm going to click the beginning of that line that I drew as my door, and then the end of that line to set the radius, and then swing it down to the midpoint. And there's the arc of the swing of my door. I need to change a couple of things about its appearance, so while I still have it selected, I'm going to come to its fill and change it to none. And I want to change the pen. So instead of it being solid, I'm going to select line type. I want this to be a hatched line because it's not representing anything solid. It's just simply representing the path of the swing of that door. So once I've got it in line type, I'm going to click on that line type. And in my Resource Manager, I'm going to scroll down until I find VW01 short dashed. And I'll double click on that, and it'll put in a short dashed line to represent that arc. Since a double door, I need to duplicate that. So I'm going to hold Shift and select both the arc and the door, and then activate my mirror tool. And I'm going to come right from the end of that arc and go out horizontally to the right to mirror it across that plane, and click that, and it completes it, and now I have my double doors. Next, there's a door in the bottom right-hand corner of Studio A. So I'm just going to pan over to where I can see that. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to select my double line tool in right control mode with a 6-inch separation. And I'm going to click in this lower right-hand corner to start my spacer line, and I'm going to draw it in 5 feet. I'll click to complete that, and that gives me the point where my door starts, so I'll click to start it. And this door is 3 feet wide, so I'll tab into the floating data bar and tell it 3 feet, and click it. There's the opening for my door. I'm going to select my spacer and delete that. And then I need to draw my door and the arc of the swing of that door as well. So I'll activate my line tool. This is the hinge point, the bottom right-hand corner. And so I'll select that, and I know that this is going to be 3 feet because that's how wide my door is. So I'll tab in, 3 feet. There's my door, and I need to draw that arc, so I'll select the arc tool, still in radius mode. I'll click the beginning of my line, the end of my line to set the radius, and then swing it over to where it intersects. And then again, while I still have that selected, I'm going to change its fill to none, its pen to line type, and I'm going to change that line type again to VW01 short dashed. And there's my second door. There's another door in the bottom wall of Studio A over here on the left-hand side. And from this one, it is 3 feet, 4.5 inches in. So I'm going to select my double line tool. And since I'm coming from the left, I'm going to switch to left control line mode and start on this, this inside lower left corner. I'll click to start that and tab in to tell it 3 feet, 4.5 inches. And I'll click to complete that. And the door itself is also 3 feet, 4.5 inches. So rather than drawing another one, I'm simply going to duplicate this, Command D, and then I'll just grab the upper left endpoint and drag it over to the upper right endpoint. That'll be the opening for my door. I'll select the spacer and delete it. And then again, I need to draw my door and my arc. So activating my line tool, my hinge point is the lower left-hand corner. I'll bring that down and tab in to tell it that I want that to be 3 feet, 4.5 inches. I'll click to set that. And selecting my arc tool, still in radius mode, and I'll do the beginning of my line and the end of my line to set the radius, and then sweep it over to where it intersects the wall. And again, changing its fill to none, changing its pen to line type, accessing my resource browser, and selecting the short dashed line. There we go. Now that looks like all the others. Next thing I need to do is put the door that is in the left-hand wall of Studio A. So once again, I'm going to come to my double line tool, and from the upper left-hand corner, it is 14 feet, 1.5 inches down. So I'll click here to start it, and I'll tab in and tell it I want to go 14 feet, 1.5 inch. I'll click to complete that line as a spacer. And this door is 3 feet wide, so I can click on the bottom right-hand corner of this rectangle I just drew and come down, tab in, and say 3 feet. There's the opening of my door. I'll click on my spacer and get rid of it. And then I need to draw the last door and swing arc of that door. So again, I'll select my line tool. My hinge point is the upper left-hand corner on this one. So I'll come out to the left 3 feet and select my arc tool. And again, I'm going to go from the beginning of that line to the end of that line and then sweep down to where it intersects. And one last time, I'm going to change its fill to none, its pen to line type, and change that line type to short dashed. There's my completed perimeter drawing of Studio A with the door swings. Next, we'll work on laying in the location of the light and sound booth. Next, I'm going to draw in the representation of my light and sound booth. And to do this, I'm just going to use some simple rectangles. So I'll activate my rectangle tool. And just as a point of reference, I'm going to come up and reference the top inside corner of my double door. So I'll get to that endpoint and I'll click to start my rectangle. And the dimensions on this rectangle on the X are going to be -4 feet because I'm moving to the left, not the right. And on the Y, it's going to be -8 feet. I'll click enter and click to complete. And there is the outline of my lighting booth. It's not actually in the correct position it wants to be in. I need to move it. So while it's still selected, I'm going to Command M and go into the Y offset, and I'm going to move it up 1 foot 3 inches. And now it's in its more correct place relative to where it actually is in the space. Next, I'm going to activate my rectangle tool again to draw my sound booth. I'm going to go from the lower or bottom right hand smart point of the rectangle I just drew for the light booth and click to start my rectangle. And this one happens to be -5 feet 2 inches on the X and -7 feet on the Y. I'll click to complete that. And I've got my sound booth roughed in. I need to draw one more rectangle, and this is going to kind of represent the corner of the ship's ladder that goes up to the sound and light booths. So again, with my rectangle tool selected, I'm going to go to the bottom right smart point of my sound booth rectangle and click to start that. And I'll tab in, and this is going to be -2 feet 9 inches on the X and -2 feet on the Y, which will actually intersect to the inside of the perimeter wall, which is correct. I'll click to set that rectangle, and now I have representations of the space that gets occupied by all three of those areas. Next, I'm going to draft in some curtains that inherently exist in Studio A. And for this, we're going to go to a different tool set. So over underneath my basic tool set, I have my other tool sets. And to get to the curtains, I want to select the event tool set. So I'm going to click on that, and it'll give me this individual set of tools. And the very last one, third row, third column, right here is our soft goods tool. So I'm going to click to select that and activate the soft goods tool. Like many of the other ones, there's various modes and also some preferences. So I'm going to click on the preferences menu, and this tells me what my object preferences are. In this instance, I want to change the height from 20 feet to 13 feet, because that's how tall the curtains are in Studio A. And the rest of this information is perfectly fine in terms of its defaults. So I'm going to click OK. From here, I'm ready to start drawing my curtains, but I need to make sure that I draw them on the correct layer. There's a couple of different ways that I can do that. I can come up to my navigation palette and hover over it to expand it. Currently, Theater Floor Plan has a check mark next to it because that's the layer I'm on, and I want to draw it on the soft goods layer. So I'm just going to click in the column next to that, and it will change where my which layer I'm drawing in. You'll notice that the drawing that we've already done just got grayed out because in my navigation palette, my layer options are currently sent to gray/snap others. I want to change that so I can see everything that I've drawn before. So I'm going to click on it and select Show Snap Others. Once I do that, the rest of my drawing comes back the way it is. But if we look over at my active layer menu, I am in the soft goods layer. The other way that you could go to change that is to click on that active layer menu and select soft goods, but you would still have to go back to your navigation palette to change the layer options to show snap others. So a couple of different ways that you can get to the same thing. But now looking up here in my active layer, I know I'm in my soft goods layer, which is where I want to draw my curtains. So I'm ready to go. So I'm going to do this from the bottom left-hand corner of our sound booth rectangle, just as a point of reference to start with. So I'm going to click to start my curtain. And I know that my curtain is 34 feet wide. So I'm going to tab in and say I want this to be 34 feet. And when it gets over to the horizontal edge of this, I'm actually going to click twice to set the curtain. If I only click once, it thinks that I want to continue the curtain around the room, which is not what I want in this particular case. So I'm just going to double click on that endpoint, and it'll take it just a minute. And it'll create the curtain with a little bit of fullness, so I know what that's representing. As I mentioned before, it's not exactly in the right place. I was just using that corner as a point of reference, so I need to move it. So while I've still got that curtain selected, I'll Command M for move, and I need to move it up 1 foot on the Y offset. And now it's in its correct spot. From here, there's a couple of legs in the space as well. So I'm going to come back to my event tool set and click on my soft goods tool again. My preferences are going to stay the same because these curtains are the same height. So for this one, I'm going to come from the insertion point of the first curtain that I drew and start another curtain coming out to the left. And this curtain is going to be 7 feet. Once I've got that line, I'm going to hold shift so that it locks me into a horizontal, and I'm going to double click to set that curtain. And there's my leg on top of that black traveler that's in the back of the space. So while I still have this selected, I'm going to go ahead and move it. So Command M, and this time on the Y offset, I want to move it 4 feet 6 inches. So it moves it into its correct spot. I need another one on the other side that happens to be 27 feet away. So with this leg selected, I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, and then move that duplication on the X offset minus 27 feet. And then on the Y offset, I'm going to tell it 0 because I don't want to move it up and down at all. I'll click OK, and then it sets in my other leg. I'm going to zoom out so I can see my whole drawing, and I think I neglected to do this last time, so we're going to go ahead and save it. And so I'm just going to come up and say File, Save As, and we're going to save this as Studio A 2D and your initials, so in my case TR. Save. Yes, I'm going to replace mine because I already have one. And I've saved my drawing. Next, I'm going to start drafting in my lighting pipes, our lighting grid in Studio A. And so to do this, we need to make sure that we're on the correct layer. So again, I'm going to come up to my navigation palette. And in this case, I'm going to choose lighting positions. The light plot are where the actual fixtures will be drawn later on, but for now we're going to go to lighting positions. So I'll click, so the check mark is next to that. And we can see in my active layer, I've changed to lighting positions. All of these pipes are exactly the same height, so we can go ahead and predetermine that, which will help us when we turn this into a three-dimensional drawing. So to do that, I'm going to click the drop-down menu next to my active layer drop-down, and I'm going to choose Show Organization dialog box. This is going to give me all of the information about my various layers. So in my lighting positions, I'm going to come to the elevation column and click on that, and I'm going to change it to 18 feet 0 inches, because I know that's the height of the grid, and hit enter, and then click OK. Now everything drawn on this layer will automatically be drawn 18 feet in the air. To draw our lighting pipes, we need to go to a different tool set. So next to our events tool set is one called Rigging/Braceworks. So I'll select that. And the tool that we want is the very first one, first row, first column. It is the lighting pipe tool. So I'll click that to activate it. And like everything else, it has a variety of different modes you can work in. So I want to verify that I am in vertex mode, which is the third one in the first section. And then I want to be in corner vertex mode, which is the first one in the second section. And then after the style, which is unstyled, I want to click on this box right here to toggle on automatic numbering. That'll help us later on when we go to draft in a light plot. Next, I'm going to click on the Preferences menu, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to my line type, and I'm going to change it from single to double, so it represents what the actual look of a lighting pipe would be. So that'll be a double line. Everything else is fine with its defaults for right now, so I'm going to click OK. So I have my lighting pipe tool activated. I'm in all of the correct modes that I want, and so I'm ready to draft my first lighting pipe. So as a point of reference, I'm going to come to the lower right-hand corner of my room, and I'll click there to start and start dragging it up, and I want to make this pipe 21 feet 3 inches. So I'll tab in and say 21 feet 3 inches, and come up to where that object length ends, and I will double click to set that point. If I click it once, just like the curtains, it thinks I want to continue that lighting pipe on a different angle. I don't in this instance, I just want it right here. So I'll double click, and it will create that lighting pipe for me at that predetermined distance. This isn't the actual location of this pipe. Again, I was just using that corner as a starting reference. So while I still have it selected, I'm going to move it, Command M. And in this instance, I'm going to move it minus 2 feet 6 on the X offset, so it moves it to the left. And I'm going to move it 3 feet 6 inches on the Y offset, so it moves it up. I'll click OK, and that gives me the location of my first lighting pipe. Next, I'm going to draw a reference line to where my last lighting pipe is, because we're going to use the Move by Points tool to create a number of other pipes. So I'm going to come over to the left-hand side of the room and activate my rectangle tool. And I'm going to start in the lower left-hand corner and draft a line all the way up to my upper left-hand corner. Again, this is just going to be a reference line that we're going to get rid of later, but I'm going to move it minus 2 feet 6 on, or sorry, a positive 2 feet 6 on the X-axis because I want to move it to the right. I want to move it 0 on the Y offset because it doesn't need to be moved up or down at all, so I'll click Enter, and now it's moved my reference line into the room. As I mentioned, we're going to use the Move by Points tool that we've explored before. So I'm going to select my lighting pipe that I've already created, and I'm going to duplicate it, Command D. And then I'm going to activate my Move by Points tool. And again, it's over here in this first column, just one up from the bottom. I'm going to click on that. And I want to make sure that I am in Move and Duplicate mode, which is my second one over. That's great. And I want my number of duplications in this instance to be 8. Once I've got that set, I'm going to click on the duplication of my lighting pipe that I've created, and start to draw that out until my last duplication intersects the center of the reference line that I drew. And I'll click to complete that. And now it inserts all of those, with this last one being right in the middle of that reference line. From here, I will select that reference line and delete it because I don't need it anymore. Next, I need to draw the perpendicular pipes that go across the room. So again, in my Rigging and Braceworks toolset, I'm going to select the lighting position tool. All of the defaults I set before are still active, so that's just fine. And I'm going to draw a pipe that intersects all of these perpendicularly, so straight across, and I'll double click to complete, and there's my pipe. From here, I'm going to duplicate this pipe and again activate my Move by Points tool. I know my mode is correct since I just used it, and I'm going to change my duplications to 5. From here, with that pipe selected, I'll click and start dragging up until my very top duplication intersects the top of the other lighting pipes I've already drawn. And that didn't actually end up where I wanted, so I'm going to Control Z and do it again, and it's going to land right there. That's much better. I'll click to complete that, and now I've inserted all of the lighting pipes that I need for the space. Next, I need to do a couple of things just to verify that Vectorworks knows that these, in fact, are going to be lighting pipes. That will help us later on when we go to draft light plots. So I'm going to select this top horizontal pipe that I have drawn. And then I'm going to come up to this main menu and click on, oh, not my resource manager, up on Spotlight, and then Lighting, and then Convert to Hanging Position. And I'll get a little splash screen, and it says, please name this position. I like to do everything in drawings in all caps. I just think it looks cleaner. So I'm going to name this pipe Pipe 1 and click OK. And it's going to ask me if I want to create a symbol from the selected geometry. And in this case, yes, I do. I'm going to click Create Symbol. And now you can see that this has been labeled as Pipe 1. And if I come up to my Object Info palette, it gives me a lot of information about it. It knows that it's a hanging position, and I can auto number it once I've got some fixtures on it, and it will pre-populate a bunch of other information. So I know that that's correct. I'm going to go through this process a bunch more times. I'm going to label turn all of my pipes into individual hanging positions. So vertically from top to bottom, there'll be pipes 1 through what is it, 1 through 6, I guess, and horizontally from right to left, they're going to be pipes A through I. So again, selecting it, Spotlight, Lighting, Convert to Hanging Position. This will be Pipe 2. Create Symbol. There it is. So that's all of my horizontal pipes done. Then I'm going to do my vertical pipes. Again, I'm going to start from the right side here and just go through the same process, only instead of numbers, there'll be letters, so it'll be pipes A through I. Okay, I've got all of those converted. They're all hanging positions. But the labels are just a little bit messy here, so I'm going to just turn them off. So I'm going to select all of my lighting pipes. I'm just going to hold shift and click on each of them individually until I have them all selected. And I'm going to come up to my object info palette, and about halfway down there's a box that says show name. I'm just going to click that to deselect it, and it's going to turn those names off. We'll put in a representation of those names later on when we start drafting a light plot, but for now it'll just make the overall drawing look cleaner. From there I can click an empty space to deselect everything and save my drawing again. Next we're going to draw in the existing seating risers for Studio A. So I need to be on the correct layer, so I'm going to come up to my navigation menu and select theater floor plan again. I was already on lighting positions while I was finishing that, so I'm going to switch back, and in my active layer menu it'll tell me I'm in theater floor plan. And to draw these seating risers, for now I'm just going to draw them as a simple rectangle, so I'll activate my rectangle tool, and I'm going to start in the upper left hand corner here, and this rectangle should be 37 feet by -3 feet, so 37 feet across and 3 feet down. I'll click enter and click to set that rectangle, so that's ready. Then I'm going to start another one at the bottom left smart point of the rectangle that I just drew. There's a section over here. So this one I'm going to tab in and make it 3 feet on the X and -6 feet on the Y. That's going to nudge it right up against that little concrete bump out that we drafted initially, which is just perfect. I'll click to complete that, and there's my second riser. There are stairs that go up to these risers that we need to draft in. So I'm going to go to the bottom right smart point of the first horizontal rectangle that I drew. And I'm going to draft a rectangle that's going to be minus 3 feet 9 inches on the X and minus 1 foot on the Y. It's a simple rectangle. I'll click to complete that, and there's actually 2 of them, so I'm going to duplicate that, Command D, and then move it Command M, 0 on the X and minus 1 foot on the, there we go, on the Y for my second one. And now I need to move both of them into place, so I'm going to hold Shift and click to select both of those, and then move again. This time it's going to be minus 13 feet 5 inches on the X offset and 0 on the Y offset. And it'll move those stairs into position. Next, I need to create some height indications to reference how high the seating risers are in Studio A. And the way we generally do this is a number inside of a circle. So while I'm still on my theater floor plan layer, I'm just going to activate my text tool, so I can either select it in my basic tool set or use the short key, which is number 1. And I'm just going to click to start some text and type in 6, because my first step is 6 inches. I'll hit escape. So now I've exited out of that, but I still have it selected. And I actually want to change the font point on this. Right now it's 12. We're going to change it to 8 and make it a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to come over here to my attributes palette and change its fill to none. As I mentioned before, this gets encased inside of a circle. So I'm going to select my circle tool and make sure I've selected radius mode. And I'm going to click in the center of my number 6 and start my circle and tab in, and I'm going to make the radius 4 inches. And I'll click to complete that. And now because my circle has a fill, it's covering up my number 6, which I obviously don't want. So there's a couple ways of fixing that. With the circle selected, I'm going to come up to Modify, because I'm dealing with a 2-dimensional object, and select Send, Send to Back, or the shortcut is Command B. So I'll click on that, and now my circle is behind my number 6, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to select both of those items and Command G to turn them into a group. So now they all operate as one thing. And I'm going to just click and drag that over onto my step to indicate that that step is 6 inches high. My next step is another 6 inches, so I'm going to duplicate this group and move it up onto my second step. And you can see that my lighting pipe is actually covering up that dimension. That's because the lighting pipe is on a layer that's above the theater floor plan, so it's going over it. So I'm just going to grab onto this and pull it a little bit further up. Maybe not quite that far. So that we can still see the number. And then I'm going to double click on that group to enter into the group. I'm going to double click on my 6 to enter in to that text editor, and I'm going to change that to 12. I'll hit escape to get out of the text editor and click on exit group. And now that's indicated that that's at 12 inches. My risers are another step up, so I'm going to select my 12-inch marker and duplicate that and move it up onto that top riser. I'll double click on that to enter into the group, double click on the 12 to enter into the text editor, and I'm going to change my 12 to 18 because it's at 18 inches. Escape to get out of my text editor, and exit group. So now I have a clear indication that my stairs are 6 inches, 12 inches, and 18 inches. The last thing I'm going to do is duplicate that 18 inches and just click and drag it over onto this seating riser section, just so there isn't any confusion and nobody thinks that there is a height difference between those. I'm going to zoom out until my full drawing is on the screen, and save my drawing. Next, I'm going to prepare my drawing for printing since I'm done drafting the basic ground plan here. So like we've done before, I'm going to go ahead and activate my rectangle tool and just draw a rectangle around all of the objects that make up my Studio A drawing. And I'm going to change both their fill and their pen to none. So I just have a transparent rectangle that will be my viewport. I'll come up to View, Create Viewport. Yes, I want it to be the crop. And then we get this menu that we've seen before. I'm going to change the viewport name to Ground Plan. I'm going to deselect Use Drawing Label. I don't want the drawing label on there. It's going to be Drawing 1, that's fine. And the drawing title is also going to be Ground Plan. I'm going to change the scale to 1/2 inch and click OK. And then I will zoom to fit to page area, and it'll zoom all the way out to my piece of paper, and there's my viewport in the center of the drawing. Next, we need to put in our border and our title block, but we need to adjust a couple of things in that before we do that. So if you have your title blocks file open, go ahead and click on the tab to go into it. If you don't have it open, go ahead and open it now so that you can access it and reference it in the Resource Manager. But once you're in your title blocks file, hover over your Resource Manager to expand it. And we're going to right-click on the full title block record format. And we're going to come down to Edit. We need to add a couple of things to it. It'll pop up the Edit Record Format box, and we need to create some new fields for this. So we're going to say New, and our first one is going to be Drawing Title, and its default will also be Drawing Title. And we'll create another one, and its field name will be Show Logo, and I'm going to leave the default blank for that one. Click OK. We'll create another new one. This will be Page Number, and its default will be the number 1. And then we'll create one more new one. Its name will be Total Page Numbers, and its default will also be the number 1. We'll click OK. I've updated my record format, and so I'm going to click OK for that. I'm going to select my US Arch D title block symbol. I'll double click on that and double click to insert it into this drawing because I need to be able to access some of the information. And then I'll double click on that to edit the symbol. The 2D components are exactly what I want to edit. So I'll click on Edit so that I can get in there. I'm going to, looks like I need to enter the group for the title block as well. So double click on that until you can get to these individual pieces of text. I'm going to click on the Show Logo and come up to Tools, Records, Link Text to Record, and select my full title block, and I'm going to scroll down to Show Logo. Click OK. It's going to change that. That's perfectly fine. It's just its default. Then I'm going to come down to Drawing Title, Tools, Records, Link Text to Record, Full Title Block, Drawing Title, OK. I'm going to come down to my plate 1 of 1. I'm going to click on the first one. Again, Tools, Records, Link Text to Record, Full Title Block. This is going to be my page number. Okay. And then I'll click on the second number one. Again, Tools, Records, Link Text to Record, Full Title Block, and this will be my total page numbers. I'll click OK on that, and click to exit my group, and click to exit my symbol. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this file again so that information can be referenced correctly. Go back to my Studio A 2D file, so I'll just click on that tab to get back to it. Our viewport's still in the center of our page. And then I can insert our new title block. So I'm going to come up to the Resource Manager and double-click on that title block to activate that symbol. And I'm going to put it in close to the center of this drawing. It's referencing a lot of the points on my viewport, which is fine. I'll just double click to insert that. And then I'm going to just zoom in on this upper right hand corner and grab that corner and bring it down to the top right of the page. And that'll insert it exactly where I want it to be. From here, I can go ahead and update some of the information. So with that border and title block selected, I'll come up to my Object Info palette and click on the Data tab. And the drafted by is going to be my initials. In your case, it'll be your initials. The date would be today's date, and for me, that is April 21st, 2026. The drawing title is going to be Ground Plan. And for now, it's page 1 of a total pages of 1. This would change if we had multiple plates of drafting for that particular show. So I can click off of that, and we can see that it's been updated with my name and date, and the fact that it's the ground plan. The one other thing that we need to change that I just forgot was the scale, so I'll select that again. Come up and do scale is 1/2 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. Enter. And then it's properly populated the scale for this drawing. From there, I'm going to zoom back out so it fits to the page. And I need to change one other thing. When we first created this drawing off of the template, it pre-created this sheet layer that's titled Read Me, and we just want to update that so it's nice and clean. So I'm going to select on the Layer Options drop-down menu and go into the Show Organization dialog box again. Note that previously we had been on Design Layers when we changed the elevation of the lighting positions layer. This time we want to be on Sheet Layers. And we're just going to double-click on the Read Me, and we'll get this editing box. And we want to change our sheet number to just 1. And we're going to change Read Me to Studio A GP, short for Ground Plan. And we'll click OK. And then we'll click OK to exit out of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and save my drawing. And then I need to export it for printing like we've done before. So I'm going to come up to File, Export, Export PDF. All of my defaults are fine, so I'll say Export. And it's going to be the Studio A 2D and my initials. I need to navigate to where I want it to be, which is here and here. And I'll click Save, and it will create the file of the PDF of my drawing. From here, you can upload the PDF that you've just created to Nexus, and you're finished with this project.